Shalom. All praise is due to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rach Wadash, the honors to the elect, apostle, bishops, elders, Zachariah, millstone, every well. Shalom to elect Akal there doing his work in sincerity and truth, and not for vainglory, in season, out of season. Okay, so it's a situation. You have this the so-called black man. He stabbed the so-called white boy, in the chest for self-defense. But y'all know the story. All right, hold on, let me see if I can. It says online fundraiser for suspect in Austin Metcalf stabbing raised over $60,000. So you have this. It says Austin Macstaff 17 left, and it says of Frisco, Texas, was allegedly stabbed and killed by Carmelo Anthony 17 right. Also of Frisco following a fight at the high school track meet on April 1st, 2025, GoFundMe / Frisco Police Department, So this is what it is. They got into a argument. I guess he came under the wrong tent at the track meet, the so-called black man, and this Austin thought, he could put his hands on him, and force him to get out of the wrong tent, some sports shit, and the so-called black man, Carmelo, he pulled out a knife and said, "Touch me and see what happens." So Austin grabbed him and he got stabbed in the heart, right? So, this is, the climate that we're living in. Don't think for 1 minute that Esau, the so-called white man, doesn't believe he doesn't have the right to put his hands on you, because he does, right? So Esau being the so-called white man. Now, in hindsight, the Carmela could have walked out of the tent and walked away, right? Because that's why the scripture said, "Be wise as a serpent, as harmless as a dove." Because attacking a guy that looked like the so-called white man, or is a so-called white man, will bring you death and destruction. Okay, because like the scriptures say, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So he could have definitely walked away from the situation. Said, "All right, cool. Let me leave the tent. I don't want no problems. And if a dude attacked him, well, then that's a different story, right?" But he didn't leave. He pulled out a knife. He stabbed him. And now he's in a world of trouble right now, But that's going according to what the scriptures say, okay? If you do it to a so-called white man, this is what's going to happen to you. Now you have a right to defend yourself and your family, of course, and Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Abaratazah will vindicate you. But, he pulled out a knife. He warned Austin. Austin didn't take the warning because he thought he was better than the so-called black man. So he grabbed his book bag, or he grabbed him, and Carmelo stabbed him. All right. And the so-called white man bled out and died. All right, then. So now they give him $1 million bail. All right. They, that's excessive. Then they want to charge him with first-degree murder. Okay. When really Austin was the aggressor of the whole situation. So, okay, but let's see what the scriptures say on doing this. All right. Let's see. This is Genesis. It says, let's start at the 13th verse, right? Oh, no, let's start at the 12th verse. It says, when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. Vagabond just means wanderer. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Yeah, because he was being cursed for what he did to his brother Abel, which was a so-called black man, right? Okay, he said his punishment is more than he can bear. All right, and it says, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. It says, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. Yeah, because Cain, Cain was doing all kind of wickedness, which is a so-called white man. Okay, he was doing all manner of wickedness. All right, and also too, he had that leprosy. All right, the lack of pigmentation. It says, and Yahweh said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, which is a so-called white man, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. That's why they, Carmelo, he has this $1 million bail, right? And then, they have him in the news as being the bad guy, as being the bad guy. Oh, he's a murderer. He's this and he's that, when the other guy, Austin, was the aggressor. Okay. Now, could have Carmelo just walked away? Yes, he could have. Hey, listen, that's what the scripture say, be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. And if we get into a situation where the so-called white man comes against us, except for protecting yourself, and your family, hey man, just walk away from the situation, He pulled out the knife, he stabbed him. Now he's in a world of hurt right now. Okay? Carmelo, he's in prison. Everybody's saying that he is the bad guy. He is the murderer, when Austin was the one, which is so-called white man, stabbed him. Started it. Okay? He was the aggressor. But of course, with so-called black, Latino, Native Americans, West Indian Asians, of course, they're always going to be the bad guy and Esau, which is so-called white man's mind. So everybody was after Esau. Esau was doing all kind of fucking wicked shit, man. It's not like it's not like Cain was a nice guy. He was up there doing all kind of wickedness, yo. Yeah, so the nations was coming after his fucking ass. But Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai wanting to set him up to be in rulership, at a certain period of time. And now, Job 9:24, the earth is given his hands to the wicked, that curse was going to be upon whoever touched Esau. Okay, whoever wanted to slay him. All right. And Yahweh said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And that mark is that fucking leprosy. Okay? That's that fucking leprosy that he has, yo. All right? Okay? That's that mark that was put upon him. That fucking leprosy that the so-called white man has. You know? You know? You know? So, you know, and this is the vengeance of when a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American puts his hand upon Esau to slay him. This is exactly what happens, yo. All right? Vengeance will be taken upon him. Because Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai set up Cain, which is the so-called white man, to be in rulership now. Okay? You know? And like I said, listen, you going to set up yourself and do something that you could walk away from, well, then you get what you get because the scriptures tell you that, you know? Now, if he's trying to do you or do your family in or whatever this is, your season, whatever situation, then you got to do what you got to do. Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Abaratazai will be with you. But, I mean, man pulled out a knife and stabbed him, man. Now, you know, we know Esau's going to pay for what he did, okay, to what he did to the nation of Israel, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Americans. But we have to wait on Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is going to send Yahweh Shai to bring judgment upon Esau. Right now, it's not the time. Because he could have even left the tent, even said, yo, this is not your tent. Yo, leave. He could have just got up and left. You know what I'm saying? You know? But he did what he did. And it's all the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai at the end of the day. You know, the guy had to go because it was all the spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, yo. You know? You know? You know, so, I mean, we get into many situations when, you know, the police pull us over, you know, whether it be so-called white cops or not, you know, we got to use wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. Now, if he comes to try to do something to you, then you do what you got to do. And have faith in Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. But the guy could have easily walked away. But, hey, this is the time that we live in. You know? All right. It says, and Yahweh said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, which is a so-called white man, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him shall kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. You know, so, hey, listen, yo. You know, we got to use wisdom out here, yo. You know, we have to use wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Unless it's to the extreme situation where they trying to take you out, well then, hey, listen, you do what you have to do. You know, you protect yourself. But God could have, Carmelo could have easily said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I'm in the wrong tent. Let me walk away and let me go someplace else. You know what I'm saying? But hey, listen, it happened. It's all a spirit, yo. It's all a spirit at the end of the day, yo. You know? So, that's gonna happen if you put your hands on Esau, yo. But that time is gonna come where we literally gonna be able to put our hands on Esau, Cain, and his descendants, which is Esau, which is the so-called white man. You know? That's literally going to happen. We're going to literally be able to put our hands on all you so-called white people, yo. That day is coming, okay? That day is coming. Right now, we got to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. So I hope you've been edified. And with that, shalom.